Welcome back to Bread and Butter, where we are serving up the basics for Hearthstone improvement. This is episode 122. As always, I'm joined by Pilot. Pilot, how are you today?
Doing well. How are you?
We're doing pretty good. And we have one of our favorite returning guests, Judge. Judge, how are you today?
I am doing just well, Tito. Thanks for asking.
And when we have Judge on, you know it's probably time to talk about Arena. And this is a very exciting time for Arena. That'll be our main topic today. Judge, what have you been doing inside of Hearthstone?
So actually, crazy enough, even with this huge, of course, me being an Arena player, huge Arena update, biggest we've ever seen, I have probably been playing some of the least amount of Hearthstone that I've played in a while. Not because of anything to do with, the new mode or how I find it or anything. Just simply I haven't had the time with some pretty major life stuff going on. But when I have been playing, it has been pretty much all. In fact, I don't know why I said pretty much. It has been all underground ever since it has come out. It's been, not as many runs as I normally would do, which would, shock people how many runs that would be nonstop. But I've gotten to play quite a bit, and it's just been unlocking underground and then island through runs. Haven't touched any other mode since the update.
Yeah, so maybe maybe there's been a glitch that has affected your ability to play as much Hearthstone as you would like. Uh, for those that aren't in the know, Glitch is the name of Judge's wife. So, yeah, I'm sure we'll talk more about that in the next section. Pilot, what have you been doing inside of Hearthstone?
For standard, I've been mainly playing weird decks. Just haven't been drawn to this meta very much, as I think I talked about the past couple weeks. Don't know why. It just hasn't suited me very well. So been mainly just kind of messing around playing the Starship token druid is what I'm kind of referring to it as, to where it uses the Starship stuff. You really just use it to kind of double up some spells sometimes or make things cheaper. And been playing a little bit of Wallow Warlock because that deck is playable. I'm not saying it's good, but it's playable. And I don't remember what else. Oh, and the Archwing Mage that I talked about last week. But most of my time has been in Arena, unlocked Underground, and had some mixed results with that. I've had a 10-win run and an 11-win run where I had some pretty solid decks. I've also had a couple 0 and 1-win runs. So taking the whole spectrum across the different things with Arena. But most importantly, Tito and I played last night for Coin Concede Listener Series, and I established myself as the superior host, bringing the weird decks that I was just talking about, and won that. They were close games. I think both games you were one off lethal or something like that.
And I felt like I played okay. We talked about this afterwards. Like, I didn't feel like I had any mistakes in those games. I felt like I played correctly, and you just got the better of me. In fact, I know the last game I had I had you down to 1 health because
Yes.
I had to go in because I knew I was dead the next turn, and I don't think I missed 1 point of damage before that. So you played very well, and I was very sad because I brought the Handbuff Hunter and the Menagerie Priest. I believe you banned. I brought a DH of some kind
I
that you
banned
banned.
the Pain DH, yeah. As I'm
Yes.
bringing Wallow Warlock and Dollhouse Druid and Archwing Mage. So I'm like, I told Tito, I'm like, good luck figuring out what to ban because there's no data on my decks. But I told him afterwards, I feel like that's some of the smartest Hearthstone I've played in a while because I definitely had to work for both wins and roped each turn because I was desperately looking for what the right play was and how to stagger out my clears. So it's a good match.
Yeah, and so honestly, I did think about this more than you probably think I did. Is I banned the Warlock because I figured you were going to ban my DH because you were playing Warlock and
Mhm.
I had the Pain DH, and I thought maybe that would squeak in the Priest because the Priest also has a little bit of that acupuncture action at the end there. So plus I didn't really want to play the DH, so I just was kind of hoping that that was going to be the way to get you there. But what else have you been doing in Hearthstone Pilot before I finish up?
That's about it.
Okay. I've been doing the same thing. I did play some arena, had some fun with it. I am in the underground as well. It took me maybe like 3 runs to get there, but we got there. We're happy. We've had some fun games. Outside of that, I've been trying to climb in standard. I've been doing it with Menagerie Priest for the most part until I've discovered that Asteroid Shaman is okay playable again. So I've been playing a metric ton of that, and it is fun because you're actually running the 6 mana spell that does 5 damage and shuffles asteroids into your deck. Comet Storm, I think, or something along those lines. I forget the name
Meteor
of it.
Storm.
Meteor Storm. So it's kind of nice that you get to play that. And it's weird because this list doesn't run, most of the lists don't run Incendious or Shudderwalk, which I think is less fun. But at the same point, it's probably because you have to be a little faster on the things. And those are fun cards, but slow cards. But yeah, Hand Hunter is probably what I'm going to try to do. I'm at D4. I'm going to try to finish climbing over the next. I'm traveling this week, so I won't get to play that much, and that kind of makes me nervous, but we'll get there. Judge, I'm sure things have been pretty quiet outside of Hearthstone. So, is anything going on?
Just mostly chilling. I did just recently move countries, and that came there's some paperwork involved with that, and a few other little clerical things to take care of. Yeah, no, we've been, and I say we, talking about Glitch, of course. We've been very, very busy. I can't believe I actually crossed the border like a month ago now, which is crazy. That it's been that long. So for those who don't know me, I've been married for a bit over 4 years, and I've been waiting to move to the United States for that long from Canada. It's a long process, mostly sitting and waiting, but we finally got the go ahead. So I moved in, just at the beginning of last month, and we've been, moving, getting all your stuff from, and it's not just like across the border, right? It's Toronto all the way to Seattle, so that's pretty much across as far as you can go from east to west.
Yeah,
and And so getting all my stuff there, we had to go through, I drove, or rather my in-laws who live in Michigan, which is much closer than Seattle, came across to near Toronto and picked me up and drove me and my stuff over to Detroit. And then I flew from Detroit to Seattle with just a small little bit of my stuff, enough to stream, clothes and a toothbrush pretty much. And then they kept the rest of my stuff to drive across the country, which they were actually planning on doing anyway, which was a happy coincidence, driving from near Detroit to Seattle. So I just stuck the rest of my stuff with them, and they actually just arrived this week. So our apartment right now, we got settled in with enough things. I got a bank account. I got my green card isn't quite here yet, but I got that like a temporary thing. I got my social security number. So there's lots of little details that we've been needing to take care of. But now our apartment is just like a disaster of all my stuff right now, including my computer, which I haven't set up yet, but I am going to be so happy to be able to stream from my excellent computer rather than this laptop that tries its hardest. It does. But for streaming, it takes up a lot of space, and it just isn't quite up to it. So I'm going to be streaming in HD for the first time, honestly, in years, because I've either had my garbage laptop with really good Seattle internet, or I've had my great computer with absolutely garbage Cambridge, Ontario internet. And now for the first time, once I get my computer set up, I'm actually going to have both. It's going to be wonderful. But yeah, we got a lot of work to do with setting up the apartment. But I mean, there's actually another whole thing I haven't even gotten to. Okay. So yeah, we're really, really busy with that. And then to add to that, also, now that I'm in Seattle, I've also been looking for work. I've been full-time streaming for a long, long time. And I don't have to tell, you guys or listeners who know the scene that it's a pretty tough job, and it doesn't, it's inconsistent, up and down. Even the biggest Hearthstone streamers probably don't make as much as a lot of people think, and all that, right? Beautiful, fun job if you can manage it. But now that I'm in Seattle, much more expensive city, want to be doing things with my wife. So I've decided to look for other work. Still going to stream, plenty part time for fun, and that'll be great. But I just started again about a month ago when I rolled in. I started a coding boot camp, a software engineering boot camp that ideally I'm looking to spend roughly 40 hours a week doing, like a full time job. And so that has been going on. In fact, that's what I'm talking to you. I said that we had to be done this recording at a certain time because I have a meeting with someone in that boot camp for check in or whatever. So that's been really fun, really cool and challenging subject. And with the goal of getting a job in tech in one of the biggest tech cities in the country is really a cool goal. So been very, very busy with that in combination of all this stuff to do with moving. So it's been a really, really busy time for me. And that is why I've played the least amount of Hearthstone in the last little bit, are those two things combined. But we're getting into a rhythm. And once all this crap is unpacked here that I'm currently recording around an absolute mess of things, then we're going to be in pretty good shape.
Speaking of unpacking crap, without getting political, you are moving to the United States at a very divisive time. How much
Yeah.
stress is that adding to you?
Honestly, it's like, it's sad but comical. You know what I mean? Just how I've been waiting to move to the States for so long, and especially like Canada and the US have been strong allies for so long, and they will continue to be, of course, right? Come on. But it's of course, with all of our having to wait 4 years in the first place, and it's like, okay, we're finally there, and then just boom, so much nonsense. And it's just like, it would be funny if it weren't actually so sad at the same time and so real. You know what I mean?
Yes.
At the end of the day, honestly, I don't care where. I am going to go live with my wife and enjoy my life with her. Politics be damned. But it is kind of like, we were considering, actually. So we got married kind of, if you do the math, right in the middle of COVID, 2021, and we didn't have our families there because we could not, and we wanted to get married, and figuring that would increase speed up the time that I could be moving there. And we're like, we can't wait till after COVID. We're going to get married now. And so we did. We eloped. We went to Alaska to get married, actually, and just had 5 of us there. And so yeah, we wanted to speed up that process, and then later we're like, okay, once things settle down and things get a bit more back to normal, maybe we can have like some sort of ceremony or party, or maybe it's an anniversary, but we have our families get together, because right, it's not just the 2 of you getting together, it's a bonding of families and that, and we wanted everyone to get together. A lot of people who don't know each other from different countries, right? And there were a few things that led to our decision. We were considering doing that this summer and this fall, even September. But we decided that, among some other things, that asking, however many Canadians to cross the border right now was just not going to be something that we were going to do. So that is a wild thing to be our reality right now between Canada and America, right? Just absolutely insane. But it is. And I think a lot of the Canadians were, there's both the angle of like, well, there are Canadians getting a lot of, held up at the border. Even if they make it across, sometimes it's taking 10 to 12 hours instead of 5 minutes. And then if they're late for the wedding and stuff like that, or for the reception. And not to mention that, understandably, there's a lot of Canadians who are a little not wanting to go to America, just in general, which, as someone with very strong ties to both countries, I think most reasonable Americans will also be like, yeah, that makes sense. That I get it. So it is kind of wild, but I think most people are just hoping this kind of insane era will pass, and we'll get on track at some point. But crazy times. All that said, love that I moved here. Love that I'm here finally with my wife, and that is by far more important. I almost did it. I almost was like, and that really trumps, everything, unintended. But yeah, so crazy stuff, but not as important as living.
Well, yeah, that's true. And we are, regardless of what's going on, we were just like, we're going to have a Canadian on no matter what. So we appreciate having you here.
Perfect. Yeah.
So, Pilot, what have you been up to? outside of Hearthstone?
I was gonna say my outside of Hearthstone hasn't been as busy as the past couple weeks. Played a little bit of Lorcana yesterday, I think. One of the stores that I go to does just a weekly league, so played a few games there, testing out some new decks and some rearranged decks that I had. I have one that I've been trying to refine that is I compared it to Rogue and compared it to all the things that people hate about Rogue, because it's very aggressive while also sending everything that they play back to their hand. Unfortunately, I was playing someone else who was doing a very similar thing, but in a slightly different, color combination and way that they were doing it to where my stuff wasn't doing the thing and theirs was. And it took, instead of a 20-minute game, it was an hour-long game. It was interesting. So I did end up winning. I don't know how. I still don't know how, but it took forever. So been having some fun with that. My polls weren't very good this set from the boxes that I got. I had the one that I purchased and pre-ordered, and then I won a box from that pre-release, and got the same number of legendaries that I got in one box last year and the two combined. So kind of stinks. But I guess if pull rates are down, at least prices right now are staying kind of reasonable if people are buying singles. So outside of that, I gave in and got a Switch 2. I was going to hold off because I'm like, my backlog's bad enough. I don't need it right now. I'm not playing the Switch as much as I would like to, but my backlog's bad enough. And then I was talking to my brother who got one on pre-order, and he's just like, yeah, all these games are running so much smoother, it looks so much better. I'm like, oh, okay, fine. I'm like, you pulled my leg. It didn't take much, but as I was coming home from playing Lorcana yesterday, I'm like, I'll just stop by the stores on my way back, just see if anyone has one. And the last store that I stopped at had a couple in stock, so I picked that up, got that set up, and played some Mario Kart last night, which is delightful. And looking forward to getting back into some of those games that I haven't played for a while.
Fantastic. And it's been a week. This week coming up, I'm traveling for work, which is exciting and fun, but also going to take up some time. So I am going to edit today and get the show out today. So this will be a quick turnaround, which will be nice. But I'll probably do a quicker job than normal. So if you happen to hear somebody cough, or I might not be able to bleep out all of Pilot swears this week. So we will
I
do
know.
our best. But also, as it's kind of weird timing, because as of right now, we are saying goodbye to one of my puppers. We had to put down my Chihuahua. It was time. She's 15 years old. Her heart had other issues and all that, and it's better. In my opinion, it's always better to um, take that and do the right thing versus try to extend their life longer than they need to and have them suffering because you're selfish that you want more time with them. So it's sad. And I feel bad for my kid at home who's like, I have to work from Rhode Island, so I'm not there today because it's weird scheduling something where like that, where it's like, okay, like this is a time when something is not going to exist anymore. And it was weird because my son yesterday was just like, hey, make sure you spend some time with Sydney because this is the last time you're going to see her. And it's weird. It was such a weird thing to say, but it was such a accurate thing to say, and all that. And as we're talking, my wife's talking about how my kids just having a really bad day, not only with that, but with some kids at school and stuff like that. So this is one of the tough parts about living kind of in a separate area during the year. But there's a lot of people that have separated homes where that's going to happen anyway, and all that. And at least I get to be there on the weekends, and if I have to in emergencies, I can get there usually that same night. Like I've been to concerts and other things, and I can drive up if I have to. Obviously, tomorrow would be a little difficult because I'm traveling, but um, outside of that, for the 13th weekend in a row, and I sorry, I hope I didn't bring anybody too down, but I want to just, this is life, and this is kind of, we have a life outside of Hearthstone, and this is what you want to know who we are,
Hmm.
and that's what we are.
Yep.
Outside of that, it rained for like the 13th weekend in a row. And I'm not making that up. That's not me exaggerating saying it's been raining for 13 weekends. It has statistically, you can look it up, has rained in New Hampshire 13 weekends in a row. So it's like trying to get, yeah, this is the time where, yes, April flowers bring May flowers bring pilgrims, whatever. But this is a time when you want to get yard work done. You want to clean up things. You need to, make sure things, and it's like, I get like a 3-hour window to try to get some stuff done, and everything's wet, and looks like it's going to be nicer this weekend. So hopefully we can get some stuff done. But I don't think anyone wants to hear more about rain and things like that. We have a new expansion, and Pilot's going to bring us into that. But just so you know, we're not going to talk about it a lot today because we already have a lot to talk about. So we're just going to cover it at a high level right now. We have a few weeks coming up where we're going to talk about all the classes and the cards and whatnot. So we will get there. But for now, Pilot, tell us about this new expansion or this old expansion. Or is it new? Is it old? I'm confused.
Yes. So we talked about it last week. We knew that the announcement was coming. We have the Lost City of Un'Goro has been officially announced, where we are, as we had talked about, and as they teased, we're taking a journey back to Un'Goro, which has been a favorite past expansion for a lot of people. And we have the free cards that they gave us, as well as the keywords and some different things that they're doing. As Tito said, we have enough to talk about. We'll get into the classes the next couple of weeks as we normally do. But we have the keyword for this expansion is Kindred, which is an effect that we have seen before, but not as a keyword. It is, you get a bonus effect if you played a card of the same type, the same minion type or spell school on your previous turn. So elementals have already had this as a tribal effect for quite a while, to where if you played an elemental last turn, do this thing. Now we're getting that as a keyword across multiple different minion types as well as spell schools. We are getting quests back, which I think people kind of expected, because Un'Goro had quests and we haven't had them for a little while. And then we have a couple of cycles of cards like maps and different things that reference back to the original Un'Goro. We'll get into those as we get into the cards themselves. But excuse me, what are you guys' thoughts on the new keyboard and mechanics coming back in?
I wonder if having Kindred as so my thoughts are we running out of things? Because we already did this with elementals, and it feels like it kind of cheapens what elementals does, because now all classes and all tribes can do it. And if we're taking a mechanic that exists and putting it into a keyword just to have a keyword, are we running out of ideas, or is it harder to implement new ideas because of how old Hearthstone is? So I'm sure it's going to be fine. I'm sure it's going to be fun. I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it. But it also gives me a little bit of pause. Why are we recycling this? And there's been times when we have recycled a couple things. We've recycled things because of nostalgic events or whatnot. But this right, and yes, we are going back to Un'Goro. I'm sure elementals were introduced in that, probably not introduced in Un'Goro, but the whole concept of playing the elemental previously and all that was probably, so this is probably a throwback too. But at the same point, I'm why where's the new stuff? Where's something exciting and different and all that? And I'm not saying it's easy. It's really, really hard. So that's just my thought. I'm sure we're gonna like it. I'm sure it's gonna be fun. But where's the new? Where's the new? This is old. Judge, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It's not the most interesting keyword, but I also don't think every keyword that comes out needs to be super, super huge. We just had starships, and that was pretty insanely out there. Pretty late into the 11 years into Hearthstone to come up with something like that is pretty crazy. So I don't mind it. It's not inherently exciting, but I think I'm okay with that. I think that there's enough fun stuff throwing back to the old expansion, one of people's favorites expansions, that the keyword doesn't need to be the biggest focus. There's lots of other cool stuff to focus on. There is also something interesting where it works. Kindred is also with spell schools, and that's something we haven't seen. So yeah, we have seen the elementals chaining, and just because it's a beast or something else, it's kind of the same, but we get to see some stuff with spells there as well. So I think I'm okay with it. I don't expect them to break the game with some crazy new keyword every single expansion. I think that would be honestly maybe even more problematic, as they try to one up themselves every single expansion and then you just end up with some absurdity going on all the time. So I'm okay with taking a step down into, I seems mean to say one of the more boring keywords, but it kind of is, right? But I think that's okay, and I'm okay with it. We got a lot of stuff to look forward to outside of that anyway.
And who knows, maybe next expansion will introduce the keyword enrage and see what happens with that. Pilot, what are your thoughts on this keyword?
Yeah, I'm a fan of the simple keywords that just do something. So I mean, Spellburst is one of them that comes to mind. Spellburst is a really neat keyword people have really liked. It's just a very simple, easy to understand effect that now they've made evergreen. And I think that, yes, it's not necessarily new with Kindred, but it's something that thematically fits the expansion and fits what they were probably going to do. So I'd rather them spend the time, and brain power, figuring out other cool stuff to do. Like, I think we're seeing more interesting things in like the cycle of cards that we're getting, like the stories that harken back to the original Angoro and the maps. And those are more interesting than the keyword. And I'm okay with that. We don't need Colossus or Titan every single expansion. Give us one really cool big one a year, and I think people are happy. And I could see Kindred being one that ends up becoming evergreen just because it cleans up the text box a lot, similar to when they added elusive last year instead of all the whatever the whole sentence was that said it's elusive.
That's fair, and I wouldn't mind as much what I just said. Kind of just not being devil's advocate, but just kind of being slightly critical because I think that's supposed to be part of our job. And, I just see that and I wonder, but I also wouldn't mind seeing some things come back as well. Like, I'm not opposed to things coming back. Like, I would love to see more Colossuses and I don't mind quests except for certain mage quests that I really hate. But we have some new cards that we get to play with now. I haven't seen anything but the Blob of Tar once. So, Pilot, what are the new cards, and have we seen them anywhere?
Yes, so we have 2 new cards that you're able to play with now. We always have the legendary that comes with the pre-order patch. So we have Endbringer Umbra, a 7 mana 6/6. Battlecry, trigger the death rattles of 5 friendly minions that died this game. Those do not have to be different death rattles, but they do have to be different copies of the minion. So the most common use for this so far has been Warrior with Testing Dummy. If you have had 5 testing dummies die, you'll have 5 testing dummy death rattles trigger, as long as they're different copies of that minion. If you have 1 die, it will not trigger it 5 times. So that was something that was not clear right away, if it was unique by name, unique by card instance, whatever. But that's been the most common use for that. I haven't seen it elsewhere other than me attempting it in an Imbue Big Beast Hunter with the T-Rex. And I put that deck away very, very quickly. So do with that what you wish. But I think that there's some interesting use cases here. The meta is a little hostile to it right now because the slower end is kind of set with the greedy decks we already have.
I mean, this seems like it slots right in. Maybe I'm wrong, but wouldn't this slot right in with like a armor DH?
Yes, I think some people have been using it there. I haven't seen it, but I believe I've heard about it.
Or even the ball hog DH, right? So I mean, this probably plays into DH pretty well. Maybe a little slow, but
yeah. So, and then our other new card is Blob of Tar. This is one that is, I believe I don't know if it's actually part of the set or part of the gift set that they've been doing when they kind of give you a card early on. I can't see the watermark well enough, but Blobatar is a 4 mana 2/4, poisonous and taunt. Death rattle, summon a 1/2 blob with poisonous and a 1/2 blob with taunt. And those are 2 mana 1/2s with those keyword, if that matters for something like Imbue Shaman that's evolving it. These I have not seen, but I've heard about them being played a little bit in Arena and feeling pretty good there. I don't think that they have found a home in Standard yet, though, but I have not been on top of that.
I've seen them a couple times in DH, but I'm sorry, DK, Death Knight.
I could see that.
Yeah, they seemed okay. I think I've won every game I've seen them though, so I'm okay with that. Keep bringing them. Have you seen these much in Arena, Judge?
I don't know that I've seen this at all in Arena. And I've played quite a few runs, and I'm like, I was even gonna ask, like, are these definitely draftable? Uh,
Maybe Blobatar isn't.
yeah, I'm wondering if the new cards are gonna have to wait for Arena until the expansion actually, or they often do a week early with the new patch for Arena and stuff like that. But I've
Mhm.
not seen Blobatar, and it does look like a strong Arena card, or at least a solid Arena card that you will. It's not like you won't see it. You'll see this card for sure. Unless it's just rare and it hasn't popped up for me yet. I don't think that these cards are in yet, or at least not draftable. Not sure. Haven't seen it, but it looks like you probably will.
I believe Umbra isn't. I'm trying to see if Blob of Tar is. I forgot that I can't just look at the news article because it's curated sets, not straight up sets.
Yes.
So-
Yeah. So that's true with curated sets. Right off the bat, nobody knows any of the cards that are in without just trial and error playing and eventually stat checking on HS3 players.
I do not see it popping up. So I don't know where I was hearing it be played about or hearing about it being played, but it was an arena.
Yeah.
So
Maybe some people saying they would play it in arena. Yeah, but not quite in yet.
All right. Well, like we said, we will come back to this over the next few weeks. Obviously, we'll be talking about this plenty. Something else to talk about. The spring championships were this weekend, excuse me. I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch any of it. I caught more than I thought I would, but less than I wanted to. Because the weekend is a very busy time usually when you only have the weekends at one place. I did catch some of the early Pocket Train games where he rolled 3-0 early. I caught some of his matchups in the round of 8, which I thought I left thinking he was going to win, and he didn't. And then I definitely watched the finals between Insane and Maxi, and that was very, very entertaining. Did you guys get a chance to catch them at all?
I did not. Each and every like championship that comes around, I'm always telling myself like, man, you got to watch these because they're really good Hearthstone, and you can like these players have such a way of like taking decks that I'll be like, okay, well, I can do my best with them, but there is this level of uncertainty, and I won't, like you can't just find a way to win in this situation, and these guys find ways to win in those kinds of situations, right? Like they really show how not lost games that even some of the best players would think are lost, and they turn around. I did not get to watch this time. I always tell myself I need to be watching more, but I give myself a pass for this one just with how crazy busy I've been pretty much every second in the last couple of weeks. So
yeah, I watched on Friday and Saturday for a decent chunk of it. Friday I had it on in the background most of the time. Saturday I think I caught the first 2 hours. I did not catch any of the top 8 because I was gone all day on Sunday. But yeah, it is definitely had some interesting matches. Some definitely some consensus of the spell damage druid, drunk paladin, cycle rogue as kind of the biggest things to bring. If you're going to go back and watch any, day 2, the very first match, which was making sure I get this right, Maxi against Suni. That match was insane. That one was very, very good. With Maxi on the Mill Warlock and finding about like plan D to actually win that game. It was insane to watch and shows how much of a different level these players are at than most of us who wouldn't even come close to spotting that. So I won't spoil more. Go watch it. It's a very, very interesting match.
See, I don't consider talking about sports that have accomplished in the past as spoilers. I know some people do, but if it's you don't not talk about things on ESPN after the basketball game because some people might not have seen it yet. So I think of esports as sports. So
Fair.
I will talk about them. So just take that into consideration. I will say you want to watch the finals, especially game 3. It was Warlock versus Death Knight, and Maxi was playing the fatigue Warlock there. That's kind of complicated to play at the end there, where you're recycling your amalgams that have the death rattles of playing other death rattles, and it was crazy because both players were at a a lot of health, and Maxi was one turn off of doing the combo. It looked like, but then Insane just found the line and drew the right card, and it just he even said I scammed the win in the post game interview. But I mean, it was insane to see what happened. So I would definitely watch that. And to your point, Judge, it is insane to see, no pun intended, some of the plays they make that you wouldn't even think about. Like there was one play, I think it was in the same matchup. I think it was Druid versus Druid in the second game of Maxibon versus Insane, where even the casters and like I think everybody on the planet was like, "Oh, he's just going to play New Heights," and instead he played a card that it draws three cards that are now on fire, and you have to play them within 3 turns because he was looking
Mhm.
for temple play and it made a difference and it's just like I would never thought it to do or maybe I would have and I would have been laughed at, but in this case they it came out and it is incredible to watch these guys and gals. So make sure you catch some of those games. Feel free to ask in the Discord if anybody has any games to recommend because I'm sure they do. And congratulations to all the people that made top 4 who are going on to, Worlds, and that is I can tell you that in a second, that's Insane, that's Maxi, that's GYU, and that's Fury Hunter. So congratulations to them, and hard for everybody else. I hope we see Pocket come back for the next, championship, because who knows with him, he's kind of retired, and he's still at the top of his game, so, looking forward to that. But we're not here to talk about that. I mean, we are, but now it's time to talk about other things. We have Judge here to talk about Arena, and we have a whole new Arena mode. So, Judge, for our guests who maybe don't play Arena or don't read the news, what is Underground Arena, and how is it different from what we were doing before?
Okay, yeah. So, prior Arena, our standard Arena, of course, for us was a mode where you draft your own deck. You try to bring that, I'll go super basic, even though if you're finding this podcast, Hearthstone podcast, you probably know the basics of Arena, but hey, maybe not. So, you get 3 cards offered, you pick one, you do that 30 times, you make yourself a 30 card deck, you bring that in, you play other people who did the same thing. You can go until you get 12 wins, a very tough feat to pull off. Once you get a 3rd loss, then you are out. You get rewards based on how many wins you win. Simple and straightforward. And that's how Arena operated for the longest time. And now we have updated Arena to be 2 different types of Arena. So we had that one standard Arena before. Now you can play Arena or you can play Arena Underground. And the Arena is supposed to be, I think, a little more friendly for, more casual players. It's shorter. It goes up to a maximum of 5 wins only instead of 12 and a maximum of 2 losses. So a lot quicker runs. Outside of that, it works very much the same way with drafting, with one exception at the beginning. But you get your 30 card deck and you just go until you get 5 wins or 2 losses. And then Underground is the same 12 win max, 3 win max as before. But it costs twice as much to enter. It's essentially 300 gold. It's 2 tavern tickets. They're changing the currency to be more tavern ticket focused than gold focused as before. And so you pay double, and this one's supposed to be a little bit more for the hardcore players, which essentially is what prior Arena was. It really wasn't all that beginner or casual friendly. One of the reasons why the new 5-2 mode exists. So now we have like what was old Arena as this Underground mode, double the stakes. A couple of changes they've made to that is now when you lose, instead of, just continuing on to the next match, you actually get to pick 5 new cards in the same drafting style, and then you can choose 5 cards to remove from your deck. So if you draft something really, really poor, or you have, say, 2 or 3 just abysmal cards you got stuck with, you can get rid of those and draft some new things to fill in their place, ultimately making those 1 and 2 lost decks a lot stronger than they would have been in the old Arena format. Also a good feeling if you do have a very bad deck and you actually can swing something out of it from that redrafting. So that's a big difference in Underground. Another big difference in both modes from what Arena used to be is that your first pick is a legendary, like we had in the last 6 to 8 months or so. Is you start with one legendary, that's the only legendary you're going to get in the draft, and then you draft the rest of your deck. They're doing a similar thing, but instead of just the legendary, your first pick is actually a bundle of 4 cards, including the legendary, with the idea that the other 3 cards will give you some sort of synergy with that legendary, and they do exactly that, give you some synergy with that legendary as a first building block for your deck to build around. Or even if you don't really get to build around it, at least your legendary has some functionality with some other cards in your deck. So that is very different from anything they've ever done, and that is the standard across both the regular arena, the 5 and 2 arena, and the underground. I think of, in fact, I got offered Kingpin Pud as my legendary in one of my runs, and I just had to say, you know what? There are, of course, just like anything in gaming or even in this world, you're going to have trade-offs of you do something, it's going to have some good things about it. It's going to have some maybe not so good things about it. You're never going to get a perfect, balance of everything across the board. You're going to have to make some sacrifices. Okay, what do we want? Do we want more synergistic decks? Do we want more focus on this or that? But I have to say that's a huge win for our boy Kingpin Pud, who I have drafted no less than a dozen times with mostly zero other synergy. And to be clear, you should not have been drafting that card, but sometimes you just want to live the dream. And now that is actually possible. Instead of losing with Kingpin Pud, I was going to say, instead of losing with Kingpin Pud and no synergy, you can lose with Kingpin Pud with synergy in Arena. So that's it is kind of cool. That's it changes the pick a lot, because sometimes the best legendary card isn't actually the best bundle of 4, and you'll turn down the better legendary for a better start, which is just a unique thing in Arena drafting that we haven't really seen. So that is pretty cool. And other differences, we've got a lot of chat around the new reward structure. And that is something that I was very curious about when it was starting out, because the reward structure in Arena prior to this big patch had never changed in 11 years, which is pretty insane when you consider just how different the game is, how many more cards and more expansions there are, how much, is Dust worth in comparison to an entire collection today versus 10 years ago. Stuff like that. So very highly anticipated changes. And I'm not sure if we have. I guess I can get a little bit into that. A little bit of a different conversation than the game mode itself is the reward structure, because I think that's one of the things. I guess I should start by saying, gameplay wise, huge win, I think, for Arena in general. We have been seeing a lot of, I will say, not super maintained metas. And I don't say this in such a negative way. There's always this conversation with development and what developers are able to accomplish and do. And in a perfect world, Arena's getting update twice a week or every week and getting all these crazy rebalances. But the reality is that takes manpower, that takes resources that that team doesn't have necessarily a lot of access to. So it's, to be expected that Arena will get a certain amount of balancing. I think that with what Arena has been given in the last little while, we've seen some very imbalanced metas, and we've seen that escalate as we've seen power rising over expansions year after year. And certain problems that might have existed a little bit, say 5 years ago, are now very prevalent today when we have some, more and more powerful individual cards. So a huge win to see ways to address that, particularly with the bundled legendary start, giving you, one of the biggest weaknesses of prior Arena with the new power in expansions is that sometimes you just had one card and it would just straight up win the game. And that is admittedly still a thing to an extent, for sure. It always will be. We see some of the cards out there in Hearthstone, and Arena is a challenging mode to navigate that. But we're seeing more competitive decks all across the board. So we're not seeing as many, my deck actually just sucks and my opponent's deck is insane. most decks are capable of winning games. So we're seeing, that bundled legendary start with synergy, giving you win conditions right off the bat. Because something that would be a commonplace with a bad arena deck before is you just don't have a win condition. You just didn't draft one. Your legendary pick wasn't that good, and then you just didn't find synergy, and you just get cleaned up, and there's not much you can do about it. And I would say that is near impossible with this new mode, where right off the bat it says, well, even if your deck isn't as good, you straight up are being offered win conditions right away. So that's awesome. There's been talks about some more attention to balance, because that most people working on Arena were working on this patch for the longest time, so there wasn't really a lot of resources to be working on balancing for the last little while. Now perhaps we're going to see some more balancing is what the word is, and that's really, really cool. Obviously balancing is a tough one because it's really a matter of opinion what a mode should be by any player, but the more they're able to do, the better. And so that's all fantastic. A big fan. So much to talk about as far as like gameplay changes and synergies. I know that you have some questions for me, and I shouldn't just go and list everything off maybe in a row, Tito, right now. But it looks like a lot of really good changes, with a big question mark on the reward structure for a lot of players, because that is going to be one that a lot of people have had strong opinions about. I've seen a lot of people, some content creators tweeting about it and chatting about it, because it seems like we have perhaps some inconsistencies upon growth from 0 to 12 wins, and how much it's worth. You'd expect a linear progression from 0 to 12 about what rewards are worth, and maybe there's some inconsistencies there as we grow, as well as probably the biggest one of just the lack of actual gold in these rewards, because instead of getting your gold back for, say, a 7-win run like you used to get, you're getting tavern tickets to replay Arena. For me, I don't really mind that because I am a content creator who plays Arena nonstop. Most people are not a content creator who play Arena nonstop, and often want to be able to have the versatility to use their awards and actually, do something with them, like buy a pack or something, right? So it's definitely a big one. Is you are playing Arena Underground to have the chance to play more Arena Underground, and that is not really what the mode has been for a lot of people. It's been, I have this much gold, I'm going to play some arenas, and then I'm going to buy some packs with the gold I earn. And that's kind of becoming less of a reality, especially when you're looking at under a 6-win run, which is most runs. So I wouldn't be surprised to see more chat about the reward structure and even perhaps some proposed changes down the line. It's still very, very new. And I think we've seen Blizzard has shown that they often will start this kind of thing a little low-ball-y and then adjust it. The tavern, track is a great example of that, I think, as well. So that's maybe one of the big ones for me. But as far as the gameplay and the potential going forward for Arena right now, I think it's extremely high.
I was going to bring up the reward track too. Is like, I'm not too worried about it. I'm also disappointed because I get dust. I'm like, I don't need dust. I already have a bazillion dust. I need packs and I need gold so I can buy portraits or whatnot. But obviously they want to funnel more of us to spend real money, which is their job. I understand that, but it is a game. It is a game for profit, and that's what Blizzard is. I am confident that as long as we go, they'll hear feedback from the community and they'll make adjustments, especially when people stop playing because they're not happy with the rewards and they see those numbers go down. They will make the adjustments because it's not on Team 5. It's never Team 5 that's making these decisions. It's always the marketing and the money counters and all that, the bean counters. So it'll get where it needs to be. Just remember that when you're shouting off into the void, that these people are real people, that they work hard, they love this game. Be polite and be constructive in your criticism. Don't be stupid. As far as you talking a lot, that's great for me because it makes editing so much easier when one person talks for a really long time. So I am good with that. My first game in the new Arena, my first bucket was, of course, Black Rock and Roll, which I had to take. I went 1 and 2. Didn't go great. So I have questions for you. Are you ever gonna play the standard arena, or is it only just gonna be underground? Is it just underground?
So that's a good question. Most of the time, I will be playing underground. With the exception of, say, I have, maybe I'm streaming and I've got only half an hour, 45 minutes left, and I'm like, well, that's not nearly enough time to get a meaningful way through a run. I might just draft and play one game or two games. So it could be, I'll be like, hey, why don't we just play a regular arena? They're short, they're quick, and only 2 losses till you're out. Just put together a fun deck that won't take long, and that could be a good way to like close out a stream. Or I think it's something I'll play a small amount of here and there just for fun. Maybe I'm on a bad luck streak in underground and I can feel the gold sink and it's like, this kind of feels rough. Maybe I'll just play a couple quick ones to just feel out a little bit more cards I could be taking, or just change things up a little bit before I hop back into the underground, just to take a bit of a breather, because it is, at least right now, very, very competitive in underground. A lot of strong players and strong decks. So even the best players are going to go through some streaks of getting a little bit wrecked. So good to take a break, maybe play a quick 4-2 run or whatever. It could be fun. So I'll play it a little bit, but most of my attention will be on it.
It may be good to have those for your chat drafts, so that way they can draft the crappy deck and it doesn't affect your ranking and all that. You can like divert them to there.
No, don't let my chat hear you say that. Their average is better than mine according to them. They're unstoppable. But yeah,
they were close once. They were pretty consistent that one time that they had a really good run. I remember that. So how about the redrafts? How important are the redrafts to a successful run? And are you ever thinking about losing on purpose to get to that redraft sooner? I know that I had a problem with the redraft is I picked the cards and I had a hard time deciding which cards to take out to put in. I thought it was going to be easy, but that's really challenging to say, because it's not like you have like a meta deck that you have statistics on, this is the worst card in here. You have a deck that you built and it could be a bunch of random stuff. It's like, well, which cards do I get rid of and which do I put in? Sometimes you don't keep the cards you just redrafted.
So 100%. I've always said like the draft is the most important part of an arena run, and sometimes what sets apart the absolute best in the world arena players versus just some of the almost best, like top 10 versus top 2, top 10 versus top 50, is the precision in drafting. And I think that the redraft system is more difficult than the draft in the first place, and will really set the absolute best players apart in their deck building ability, because it is a really tough thing to do, to draft 5 and get rid of 5. I can compare it. The best I can compare it to for any standard players would be to try to take a Renathal deck and make it a 30 card deck by just including the absolute best. Because that's, in theory, a lot of times a Renathal deck was just maybe a slightly weaker version of what a better 30 card list could have been if you got it down to 30. I loved Renathal. I didn't even bother, but that's kind of the idea, is how do you take this 35 cards or 40 cards and refine it down into 30? And I think it is a very challenging thing. I think that most of the time, there's so much room there's so many different options you have during that phase that finding the best path is nearly impossible, or in theory. So just to refine that deck, it is a very, very, very challenging thing, I think, even for the most elite players, which is why I kind of love that aspect of it. Completely new element to arena deck building. And it just gives you so many new paths forward. So I'm a big fan of that.
Would you ever lose on purpose?
No, I would never lose on purpose. I think that there is never going to be a statistical advantage. You might be, even if you've got a bad deck, as far as trying your hardest, you play your bad deck until a loss is going to be what's going to net you the most wins. If you want to lose on purpose because you don't care about the result as much as you just want to get some new cards, that's on you. Go for it. But it's never technically the right decision ever. It's always going to be to play it out for sure. And like I said, you've got probably at least one win condition with your legendary bundle. You just mulligan aggressively, try to get lucky if your deck is really that bad. Usually when you have a bad deck, you take a few more risks than you might with a well-structured deck. But no, you definitely play it out.
Well, you said you get a win condition, but then you also said you get King Pud, so those are conflicting pieces of information.
No, they're done. I play King Pud. It's over. I've got too many ogre gangs on the board, man. There's no way. If they play Psychic Scream, I concede. Then I can go. Okay, they got whatever.
Yeah, the power level's way too high to take a loss on purpose right now. I've had a couple decks that are really strong, and you just run into something that has such a big power turn that you just you had something really good, and their thing was just better. And they're going to beat 99% of other decks, and that's just how it is. And you're going to run into that too many times in a format where you only get to lose 3 times until you're done with that deck. You can't take a freebie with that at all, in my opinion.
I was gonna say there's some good clips of people getting double Hamuled at like 2 and 2. I played at 2 and 2 myself, someone with 2 Hamuls, and luckily I beat them on turn 5, so I didn't have to, I think they summoned like a 5/5 or something. But there's a good picture of Zeddy with an opponent who has a 6/6 Golem hero power on turn 1, which is pretty insane.
So would you say that right now, do you think that the average wins per run is going to go down because of how challenging it is with the new redraft? And do you think that 12 wins is now more or less impressive or the same?
So from what I'm seeing right now, I would say that for strong players, I would expect averages to come down on average. You're going to see, say there's 20 really strong players. One of them might have, a very, very high average, typical of what you'd see on older leaderboards, just because that's how stats works, right? Someone's going to have a good time. But I would expect on average across the board, you're going to see averages come down from strong players. Averages regress toward the mean generally, as we see weaker decks have more power on the redraft. And, like I say, 2 and 2 Hamuls are going to happen sometimes. I think that's just going to flatten the average down a little bit. So I'd expect good players' averages to come down, at least as it exists right now. We'll see, because it's still early. They might be updating things down the line or early on, but I would expect top averages to come down.
It's pretty wild with the background noise you were talking about. It almost sounds like you're the MCP from Tron right now, because you get the little reverb going on.
They're supposed to. It's 2:30. They're supposed to do this at like 10 a.m. Man, they're blowing leaves out there or something. I planned for this, but
Well, welcome to America. We sleep late. So, I think you said. I think I can tell that you have you approve of the bucket system where you have some sort of synergy right off the bat. Do you feel that takes away from Arena in the challenge of it, or do you think that it's a good thing because you always have that lethal condition?
So it's a really good question, because I am somebody who is very nostalgic for the old school Arena, where I kind of grew into popularity in Arena. Much simpler decks. The top cards were still very good, but not nearly the power level we see nowadays, of course. And so ideally, I would say, the bucket system on the first pick does make it much more standard-like and much more, Arena never was really about a full synergistic deck. Finding synergies would be very neat, but it really was about deck construction on the base level of how many 2s and 3s do you have? How many late game cards do you have? How do you structure a deck? And it wasn't as much about synergies. Now, some would think that is more boring than finding synergies, and that's a legitimate opinion. They generally played standard, the people who felt that way, right? I loved that deck building challenge, and I loved that old school Arena, and I would, in theory, love if it weren't necessary to have these buckets. But I just don't think that we are in a space in Hearthstone where it makes sense to try to go back to that level of basic deck building when we have seen so much progression and so much increase in power. I just don't think it's really a possibility. So I think given the cards and sets we have access to, and with the progression of where Hearthstone's gone, that these buckets do make a lot of sense. So in the basic theory, it's like, I don't really love to see that, because it is against what Arena used to be a long, long time ago. But I just think we're so far past that now, and that these buckets do address current issues in the arena.
So does it still feel like Arena though to you?
Oh, that's such a tough question to answer. Does it feel like Arena? It sure has changed a lot. There's a certain again, nostalgia for the old school Arena days for me, that I think that era of Hearthstone, that era of Hearthstone is in the past. So I don't look at this mode and really equate it to what Arena was, say, upon release or even a few years after that. It's a lot more powerful. It's a lot more. I mean, you could say, look at Standard, right? I mean, you look at old days of Standard and what used to be high power level. You look at today and what used to be high power level. Same kind of thing. It's completely different era. And that's just going to be the nature of how collectible card games go over a long period of time. And working with where you are now is going to be more important than trying to chase something that used to be. So I don't see it as being the same, but that's okay. It is Arena. That's what Arena is today in 2025. And they're, doing new things with that. And I think you look at where we're at now and where we are going forward. And I think they're doing some good stuff with that.
I think one of the interesting things, kind of to go back a little bit, is the buckets, I think, have made it to where you look at all three choices a little bit more, because like you talked about, Kingpin Putt is the perfect example of it, to where in the past you would just ignore that one unless you were specifically trying to make a meme arena deck. But now you get all three Ogre Gang cards with it, and that's something that you can do something with. And I think it smooths out, because there's a lot of buckets so where you have this generically powerful legendary card, and yes, the other cards go with it, but they don't necessarily support it in the same way. Like I've been offered Fyrakk a couple times, and that card doesn't need support to make it work, but they put in a couple dragon type synergies in there that 9 times out of 10, those are some of the first cards I was cutting from my deck because I didn't get any other dragons that made a difference. So it kind of smooths some of that out. Or like one of my drafts was a mage with Infinitize to the Maxitude, and it gave me a couple other discovers and then some card that reduced the cost of cards in my hand that didn't start in my deck. And it's just like, okay, that's something I can lean into to start. It didn't quite go where I wanted it to, and then I knew, okay, I just cut the bad ones out, leave the good ones, and now I have an elemental mage deck instead. So I feel like that kind of smooths out some of that, but it makes it tricky when you get some of those generically powerful legendaries for Arena, and then the support cards that go with it aren't actually supporting it, and then sometimes they're just deck filler, and it makes it a little interesting to kind of maneuver around that without boxing yourself in.
So, Judge, what's been your best run so far, or your funnest run, even if it may not have been your most successful?
So my very first run in the underground, I was offered, and it's tough because I knew it was going to be very high competition, especially since I unlocked underground right away. So only other people and it took me, if you remember, there was that big issue with Arena where they had to shut it down. There were some disconnecting issues. So it took me a little longer than it normally would have. I actually was on my way to 7-0. My first run went 5-0, and my second one I was 1-0 and was literally about to win the game when I got that disconnect bug. So I technically went 7-1 after losing my next one. But I got there very, very quick. And usually it's going to be, strong players and people who are ready, raring to go to play this, who are going to be in underground that quickly. So I knew it was going to be really tough. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm going to not meme around a little. I got to, there's some fun cards, but I know it's going to be I've got to take the best deck I can, because this is going to be seriously tough. And then, I say that, and then my first legendary bucket was Prince Malchezaar with Prince Malchezaar, and Prince Malchezaar. Yeah. So what am I supposed to do? Right. Of course I took Prince Malchezaar. I had 4 Prince Malchezaars in my deck. I mean, come on, random legendaries are always good. So my deck was mostly random legendaries. which it's a curated set. So surely most of the legendaries are decent. I mean, it was fun. It was fun. I think I went 3, which is not great for me, but it's also the underground and it's going to be tougher. So you're going to get 3-win runs. And I won 3 games. I had some sweet legendary plays. That was a super fun run. It's almost, in fact, it's certainly always wrong to take Prince Malchezaar, and Prince Malchezaar as a tryhard player if you're looking just to win. Usually randomness is something you don't actually want a lot of as a strong player. But like, come on, we're here to have fun. And there were 4 Prince Malchezaars. I'm only human. That was super fun.
Sure, they took that bucket out because the feels of the Prince Malchezaar wasn't good or something like that. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they did.
They didn't take it out, but they made it the drop rate is less. It appears less.
Really?
And I thought they took
I
out.
didn't know that.
I thought they took out Fyric too, but I guess not.
Fyrac cannot be generated anymore. You can pick it, but you cannot randomly generate it.
Yeah, which is
Fyrac,
a big, good improvement. Like just Priest getting Draconic Studies, finding Fyrac win the game is a tough one.
Yeah, that Amir Drasil, the Druid location, and Tortola were taken out of the generation pool with the hotfix patch that also took out Zephrys. So
nice. So you did mention the kind of rough start that they had, and I don't think we have very many launches that don't have a little bit of a rough start here and there. Do you think that, given that this is like the grand unveiling of Arena and then they had issues right off the bat, do you think that hurt it at all, or do you think that it was just kind of a blip and it's gonna be good or bad depending on, it didn't matter that?
I think that like short term, it seems like a big deal as people comment online and people say, like typical Hearthstone release. And I guess I'm not playing Underground and stuff, but I don't know. I think you're going to get comments from those same people no matter what on the issues. It's a huge new patch. There's inevitably going to be, okay, this was a huge issue. I'm not saying inevitably this was going to happen, but they got to work on it and they fixed it the same day. What are you going to do? I don't think it really is going to matter. I think what matters is how things are going to be handled as far as gameplay experience and balance over the next several weeks or months. I think that'll be a more important thing. These kinds of quick issues, they happen and they're short-lived. And there'll always be that. Remember when Underground just came out, or remember this patch? But I don't think that will affect the popularity of the mode as much as it's just a quick, wow, that sucked or whatever. I don't think it'll really affect, the people who are going to not play because of that. I believe most of them probably would have found a reason, anyways. So I don't think it's really that big of a deal.
People also have to remember they've crammed a lot more into the patches this expansion, because we're only going 3, major patches with 32 rather than 4. So, they already pushed Arena back 1 patch. It was supposed to come out with the mini set, and, it wasn't ready yet. That would have been, this was just, Arena plus the new expansion pre-releases, which is the smallest of the major patches typically. If that's going to cause problems, you can just imagine there's just so much stuff crammed into this. You're not going to find everything.
So one thing I did notice, it looks like the random letter generated bot farmers are back. Is that a problem now, or is it just kind of like, do we really, with the new system, do we really need to be selling runs?
So, yeah, it's interesting because I think the purpose of, and I don't know if we mentioned this before, that you do have to, well, we've alluded to it at the very least, that you have to win 7 games of regular Arena before you are able to play Underground. And that was, I think, meant to deter new account creation and immediately getting into the Underground. So you'd have to, win 7 games and then go. So you'd expect perhaps less of these barcode accounts. I think there's always been this discourse around barcode accounts, and I've played many suspicious looking accounts that have had decks that have been unbelievable, and I know that some of those decks have been cheating, but from what I've gathered, having the privilege to even chat a little bit with some of the people who work on it briefly and seeing some tweets from some devs about stuff and chatting with some other streamers, is that perhaps there is a lot more ignorance around these accounts than I suspected even myself, where it's like a lot of those accounts will not actually be any more difficult to beat. A lot, some of them will be. I'm not saying that there isn't a problem. There is. It is something that exists, and it is something that is very frustrating when you run into it. But I don't think that the problem is as big as a lot of people think, and as much as I thought. I was one of the first to be like, "This is ridiculous," and this is terrible. And then I learned more and more about how these accounts exist and how they operate, and even how sometimes you get these people who purchase these accounts and have all this gold or whatever, however they're doing it, and they end up just getting these insane decks, but man, they are just really bad at Hearthstone, and they end up being some of my easiest wins. So like, it's, yeah, their deck's insane. So it's unfortunate to see. You also see this more at the beginning of a patch than you do throughout the rest, and there's ups and downs with ban waves. So I'm sure it's something that the team has their eye on, and it'll always be a problem to an extent. It's just a little bit of a wave up and down as to how much it will be at any given time. Frustrating when you do lose to a very obvious cheater, but it probably doesn't affect your, say 30 run ranking as much as it might feel in that moment. You know what I mean? It is frustrating for sure, but something they do tackle in waves, and not much else we can do about it as far as I know right now.
All right. So now for the big question, and we've kind of talked about this throughout this discussion: new arena mode. Is it better or worse?
I think that given how Hearthstone has been, the projection of Hearthstone over the years, this is a huge improvement, I think. And I think that it is, something we're going to see more and more as we keep going. This is just the first iteration, even, their first shot at a curated set with no balancing really possible outside. You can play test all you want or theory craft all you want as a developer with this kind of thing, but there is no way you are going to be able to know what the balance needs to be on cards until you see data from played users. That's the reality with this specific thing. There is no way you're going to know. They've made quick changes on some problems. Like, Fyrakk being discovered felt pretty awful, and you wouldn't be able to beat it. They addressed that. There are a lot of other things that are, kind of auto wins. That's not really arena related. I think there's a lot of that in Hearthstone with some powerful cards now, and they seem like they are saying, we are willing to look and address these issues quickly. And I think that the whole system looks great. And the biggest thing for me is if they keep on top of class balance and outlier cards, I think that this is going to be something that is really enjoyable. Reward structure aside, I do believe that it would be really beneficial to see some actual gold introduced and a bit more balance across the reward structure. But again, that can be influenced by powers greater than the developers can do anything about. So that's another issue entirely. But I think, outside of that, I think it looks very promising.
And at least with Arena, it has a long storied history versus something that no longer really exists, like duos or even Twist. That no longer seems like, when's the last time we had a Twist thing even mentioned? So I'm hoping that the fact that this is one of the OG modes that's been around, that even if it doesn't get as much attention as you guys never get as much attention as you would like, I hope that it's still something that keeps getting attention, because it does hopefully generate revenue and whatnot. So, final question: do you have any sage advice for the developers that work on Hearthstone? I mean, on Arena.
Sage advice for the developers. Oh man, that's a tough one, because like anything that I would want to happen with the mode, they also already want that, and it just can't happen. You know what I mean? So it's like advice, double your team size, like, I don't know. They do a great job. They really do a great job. A lot of people don't know that because of how many issues happen in Hearthstone, but man, it's a small team. Convince your bosses to hire a couple more people. Man, could you imagine if they actually had like a dedicated couple of people to just do balancing on Arena, and that's it? And that wasn't like something they just had to do on the side when they could. I don't know. Honestly, I feel like it's got to be a really tough job being a developer in Hearthstone, especially if you are in the public eye at all. You look at some developers who are active on social media, and all the comments they get and the spirits they handle it in is, actually kind of miraculous. I don't blame the developers who wouldn't want any part of that. It's not advice because they already know this, that, it's going to be the biggest thing about Arena is going to be the consistency of balance checks and consistency of changes. Not just doing, sometimes we see a fix and then it's like, okay, well now we're going to get back to that in 2 months. And it's like, well, no, now we've got a new host of problems. It's a dynamic meta. And things change all the time with how people are drafting. But this isn't really advice because they know this. It's just whether they're able to do it. Arena's on the front page now, by the way. So they wouldn't put it there if they weren't willing to allocate resources. You know what I mean? No way. The front page. So, I think it's going to come down to, the functionality of Arena looks good. It's going to come down to consistency on balance from top to bottom, like 1st to 11th. We've seen some pretty big swings of like 20 to 25% win rate gaps between those. I think we can't allow that to happen anymore if we have more resources going into balancing. And I think we just need to be keeping an eye on that. I mean, ideally, ideally, maybe every couple weeks to take a look at a couple minor changes would be great. But like I say, the people, the players who want the most change in these kinds of things are the developers. So, they'll do what they can. And when they're not doing it, it's because it's nobody's job to at that point, like they'll be doing their job. And it's just whether on the grander scale, Arena balance makes the cut for what is on their plate. Right.
Well, on the bright side, if they want to double their team, they just have to hire one more person. So that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we have one more question for you from the earlier segments. We already talked about the political unrest and all that stuff. So let's ignore that. Outside of that, how's America treating you?
How's America treating you? It's crazy how many little things are so different between Canada and America. You think of like how big of changes you could have moving from one country to another. And then a lot of people go, well, it's just Canada to the US. That's pretty similar cultures, and relatively sure that's true. But there are so many little things I'm discovering about, like, I will say a word and just get confused looks from people. What was my one big example after years and years of being married to Glitch? I called out what Americans would call a traffic cone, orange cone, and called it a pylon. You guys don't call it a pylon. That's what it is in Canada. It's a pylon, dude. And I just said, like, hey, pylon over there, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And everyone was like, what? What are you talking about? And I've had like 10 to 15 instances of that. And it's just like, that's kind of minor stuff, but it is very funny how many just little things. My phone finally changed over to Fahrenheit. So I'm beginning to learn how that works. So that's exciting. I tried to change it from Celsius to Fahrenheit, and it said, okay, you're in Fahrenheit now. And it just kept being in Celsius for a week. I guess it didn't believe me, but it's over there now. A lot of little funny things like that it's just like you don't really think about in a day-to-day life. And then all of a sudden it's like, man, there's a lot of little things that are just different that I'm gonna have to learn. In general, though, it's been an amazing month. Glitch took the first week I was here off of work, and we just went around town and did a lot of fun things together. Tons to do in Seattle. Really, really busy city. We just last night we were at a masquerade gala. A gala. Who does that? Who goes to a gala? I guess you do that in Seattle. Nothing. It was wild. It was super fun. And yeah, we've been doing all sorts of stuff with friends and simultaneously doing that. The boot camp and getting organized in the apartment has been a lot, but it's been going really well. We've just been doing lots of fun things, getting to know the city, and it's been I've visited many times, but it's a pretty awesome place to live. The mountains and the water. I back home, I lived on a flat piece of land that was flat for a good 1,000 miles in each direction. In fact, from where I was, like, there's just no rising fall in the land where I am. And pretty far from any water too. So being that close to, the West Coast, that kind of stuff is very beautiful. And living so close to that is really, really cool. It's been an awesome, awesome transition so far. Honestly.
Nice. Well, we're glad to have you in America, and hopefully having both your high definition camera and your high speed internet all at the same time.
That'll be
And I'm
crazy.
looking forward to doing another arena. It was Judge was supposed to get me to 12 arena wins, and we got to 7, but I believe the alcohol had something to do with that. So
No, yeah,
that and my poor play.
maybe.
But we'll have to get back at that. That was some of the most fun I've had. So folks, as we always ask, please leave us a review. It helps other people find the show. Hopefully, you like a 5-star review. Seems like everybody but one person has left us a 5-star review on Spotify, so we appreciate it. I don't think you're going to find this podcast by accident and be like, "Well, this is crap." Maybe you do. I don't know. So we appreciate it either way. But we did launch a Patreon this week. You can find it over at patreon.com/bread and butter hs. That's be it bread, the letter N, butter, HS. I know it's a little awkward, but it's what was created when we did it at the time. And I'm sure bread and butter, we probably should have had an and there. I could try to change it. I don't know, but we'll get there. We're not looking to why are we doing a Patreon? Because we have a podcast. Yes. Obviously, we like to try to cover expenses. And ideally, if we get to the point where maybe we can give our guests a little thank you money for taking their time and being on the show and talking with you. Won't be much, but if we can, buy someone some poutine, all the better. That's kind of the end goal. Judge, where can people find you on social media?
People can find me at twitch.tv/judge on Twitch, and on Twitter. You can find me at what's my Twitter handle? Hi, my name is Judge on Twitter as well. Will be where you find me most active.
And how about yourself, Pilot?
You can find me on Twitter at Pilot712. That's PYLAT. Or you can mainly find me in Discord with the same handle.
And you can find me on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, and other places at Tito Santana HS. I got to do the Instagram too because everyone's like, "Hey, are you on Instagram?" I said no, and I really should be, but we'll get there. Judge, do you have anything you'd like to promote or shout out this week?
Maybe with this new big arena announcement, I feel like I do a similar shout out each time I'm on the show, but a lot of well-deserved, people who stream arena who, it's been an interesting bunch of years for arena streamers. It's going to be tough for some of these awesome talents to gain popularity and make a name for yourself. I mean, streaming is always tough. So I'm going to shout out a couple of streamers that you should check out if you're looking to check out more arena underground. Of course, you've already followed twitch.tv/judge from earlier. I'm sure you did that instantly as we were promoting. You should also check out some of the bigger streamers. You'll find Redbeard, Dreads, and Dose of Coffee are three of the biggest, fantastic personalities. And the arena community has so many people. You're going to find your flavor around there. There's also Neo Greg, possibly the most skilled arena player possibly in the world, playing active right now. At least one of them. So make sure to check out Neo Greg. Mafundi, that's Mifundi, another very, very strong and fun player to watch who streams quite often. And I guess Save File would be the one I was missing there. Save File 17, really, really awesome stream. He's been streaming a long time. Amazing stream. If you're into, a very awesome niche of Star Wars, Star Trek, and some other categorically geeky topics that he just absolutely covers in such a way that if you're into anything even niche, it's just a beautiful place to be. So awesome stuff there. Lots of great stream. I'm sure I'm missing somebody or another, and I apologize, but lots of great content in arena out there right now, despite challenges in the last year or several. So during this update, be sure to check some of them out.
And there's not a lot of arena streamers, so if you ever wanted to get into streaming and you wanted to play arena, this is your best time, because if you ever want to build up an audience or try to find building up an audience is hard. We're not going to talk about that news this week. So if you need to try to do something, and that's an in, right? Because there's only like 7 of you or something. So get out there, have fun, build arena. Pilot, do you have any shout outs this week?
Going to shout out to Storm Rage, friend of the show, but he talked me into playing some Marvel Rivals finally with a group of his and had a great time with that on Thursday, even if I stayed up way too late because they're all out west and I am not. But it's okay. I'm on summer vacation. I can make up the sleep at another time. And also shout out to Yogg, because that was my first arena draft and it was as goofy as you would expect it, because that bucket has both Yoggs in it.
Praise Yogg.
That it was a lot of fun and got me more wins than I expected.
Okay, I gotta say, Pilot, though, you're like, oh, it's summer, I can stay up later. You're staying up just as late as you do during the school year, so I don't want to hear that.
Well, yeah, that's I don't have to, wake up as early though.
That's true.
Actually, somewhat sleep.
And we did this last week, but I'm going to shout out again Coin Concede, who just had their 500th episode, and they had Ridiculous Hat on. If you have not listened to it yet, it's a wonderful trip down memory lane. Coin Concede, I love, is really the Theseus of podcasts, because they have an entirely different crew than when they started. Is just a fantastic show, and they had some nice things to say about us. So I appreciate that. But and I also want to shout out Judge, who factored us into a very busy schedule, galas and moving and school and job hunting. He's like, I can fit you in. Let's get it done. So we appreciate you, Judge. We always love having you on.
Absolutely.
Can't wait to talk more about arena changes as they come up. Hopefully we'll have you on fairly soon again, but I think we're toast, guys. We'll see you.
See ya.
Slide two brothers meet one another when they slide up to the mic. It's bread and butter with one another. Let's start up that recording light.